Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today inside of Overwatch, inside of the PTR, which just went live, and we're going to be talking about competitive play. Competitive play is now live inside of the PTR. We can check out Season 1. Of course, Blizzard trying to do some final tweaks, get some final pieces of community feedback before they launch this into the regular servers. If you want to check it out for yourself, there's nothing special you have to do other than go to your Battle.net launcher, tab over to Overwatch, select the region pull-down menu, and select PTR. You'll have a short additional install of like 6 gigs or something like that. You'll be ready to go, hop into the PTR, play with people from across the globe with really bad pings just to get an early peek at competitive play, if that's the sort of thing that you're really excited about. I'd say it's worth the install as long as you've got the memory, the bandwidth to check it out. It's going to give you a little taste of competitive play, how it kind of plays out, the length of the matches. Or you can watch this video, and we're going to talk about that. But really, the bigger part of this video is going to be discussion on why I probably won't mess with competitive play too much. Some of the issues I have with matchmaking-based competitive play. This is very much an opinion piece, my opinion. If you disagree with that opinion, that's okay. Maybe you'll love playing competitive play. Maybe you'll love playing it as a solo player, which is really what we're going to focus on today. But I've always had an issue with matchmaking-based competitive play. To me, I mean, it just kind of seems like sort of an idiom. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, how do those two things go together? How do you have the ability for someone to solo queue and matchmake in something that you call competitive play? I really think, personally, the big thing behind competitive play, it's just a lot of psychological elements that are driving competitive play. You know, there's adrenaline boost, obviously. You have a lot of ego on the line because you're dealing with a skill rating now, a number next to your name that says, hey, look at my skill rating, I'm 99. What do you think of these guns, yo? Like, it's totally a mind game, and that's why people play competitive play in a matchmaking based environment. So I understand why people do it. I really do, but I want to share with you my perspective as to why I just don't fall into that whole thing. Like, it's not enough for me to want to play competitive play. I will admit that the cosmetic rewards that they're already talking about, like the ability to purchase golden weapons and who knows what else they'll do, it's tempting. There's no doubt about that. And I think a large amount of people hopped into the competitive play in Heroes of the Storm for that reason, my buddy included, and found it to be a really frustrating experience. So this might be a good discussion for those of you who are new to Overwatch, who are making Overwatch, as I've said in the past, your first-person shooter. You might get some valuable information out of this, or at least some thought processes, but I still strongly recommend, no matter what I say here about how much I don't care for competitive play in a matchmaking-based environment, that you go check it out for yourself. Whether it's in the PTR or when it goes live, do yourself a favor and give it a go, especially if you have a group of friends to play it with. And we'll talk about that more. But first, before we get into that big, juicy discussion, let me just briefly go over what you're going to be seeing when you go into competitive play, the rewards that you're going to be getting, and really just talk about how it works. Blizzard has made this incredibly easy. They tell you everything you need to know right from your menu selection screen. So, number one, you're going to have 10 placement matches. If you've played like Halo 5 Guardians most recently, they do a similar skill-based rating system. So you have a number of placement matches, and then your skill rating will be determined. It's a number from 1 to 100 in the case of Overwatch. Your skill rating can then adjust after each win or loss. So you could win some matches and increase your skill rating, or you can lose a bunch of matches and drop down the ladder and decrease your skill rating. Now, competitive matches themselves are matches that last multiple rounds. So we're talking lengthy matches here. In fact, the footage that you guys are seeing right now is a 35-minute match. So these aren't your nice, friendly, 7 to 10-minute matches that you get in typical public play. These are long matches. You're going to have to dedicate some time. You're going to have to really sit down. And no matter how frustrating it gets, you're along for the ride, because if you quit, you're going to get penalized. It's as simple as that. You earn points by taking the objective. Most points wins. Ties result in sudden death. So it's just back and forth battle, playing round after round after round, seeing who can, essentially win and get the most points first. Now, they're going to be doing seasons for competitive play, which I always appreciate. This gives you the opportunity to start anew. It takes away some of the weight on your shoulders as a new player when you start messing with competitive play, because you could have a really crappy first season, but then, you kind of snap back. It's like being a professional athlete. Yeah, he had a bad first season in the NFL here today, Ted, but, he had a really good end of the season, and I'm hoping that next year will be his strongest season yet. And that's really how you can look at it from a personal perspective. the incentives of playing competitive play. You're going to get exclusive rewards. There's sprays, player icons. You're also going to get the ability to use competitive cash or coins. In this case, for Season 1, to purchase golden weapon skins for each of the heroes. And once that season's over, you're going to have a brand new placement. So that's what I'm talking about with the starting over thing. You know, you could place really poorly the first season and be stuck down in the 20s or the 30s, but the next season, you've got a fresh opportunity to start anew. Whether you're playing alone or with a group of friends, you can start fresh. And I definitely appreciate seasons for that reason. So that's the base of competitive play. That's what you can expect. Like I said, I think the big thing to take away from that is the length of the matches that you're going to be getting yourself into. One of the things I like about Overwatch is that I can play, 3 matches in 20 minutes. I can sit down just before work and play 1 match and be able to walk away. That's not the case with competitive play, so be prepared for that. Let's move forward with that discussion I talked about. So here's the first thing. That sort of idiom aspect that I talked about. Competitive play allows you to queue in any way that you want. You can queue alone, with 1 player, 2 players, or with an entire team. Now, when you're doing your placement matches, that's obviously going to have an effect on where you end up placing. Chances are, if you queue for all 10 of your placement matches with a full team, or even with 4 people out of the 6 people that you need for your team, you're going to end up placing relatively high. Chances are, if you have a solid team that can communicate, you're going to place relatively high because your team's going to have a lot of wins. If you go in solo, it's really the roll of the dice. Your fresh placement, you're getting match made with just a bunch of random people. The coordination could be there, the coordination could not be there. And we all know that when you're playing alone, you're pretty much going on blind faith here. Not many people are going to be talking. No one's going to be on the microphone. Maybe a few people will be chatting. So it's all about just that random, non-vocal coordination between you and your team. There's a good chance that you're going to lose a lot more matches in that type of an environment. It's just, that's the way it's going to go, so you're probably going to place lower. I've never been a fan of how that whole scenario works, and I've always thought in my head, why not have 2 separate queues? One for solo queuing, like, Mercenary, like a lot of games do, and one for team-based queuing. But, I'm assuming that Blizzard has tested something like that. Maybe the matchmaking is too slow when we're talking team-based. Maybe it affects matchmaking speeds as a whole, and they're trying to find that equal balance. It is something that a lot of us have wanted to see in public play, and I think would make substantial sense in a competitive play environment. But that's just not the case, and I don't think anyone has ever done anything like that. Almost all of the competitive play matchmaking modes that I participated in, whether it be Halo or Call of Duty or other Halos in the past, that's just how they do it. They do it exactly the way Overwatch is doing it. Solo queuers, team queuers, group queuers, 2 people queuing together, they're all in the same instance. It's as simple as that. So that's just something you have to deal with, right? And a lot of people, like I said, they accept that and they get over it. But for me, it's just, I don't find, there's no appeal for me personally to play competitive just to have a skill rating next to my name and, to get that EP thing going, to unlock some golden weapons when I know it's going to be a really frustrating experience. I think we all know at this point that solo queuing in a team-based game is a thing designed for a certain type of player. I don't mind it too much in public match, and I do it relatively awesome because it's public match, and I don't really have any cares in the world. But you throw in that, again, that psychological element, that element of risk and reward, because you're in a competitive environment all of a sudden, and it's a different type of experience. I think there's no denying the mental effect that has on you as an individual. You get frustrated more easily, or at least I do. I find myself, being way more on edge. Does that drive up the adrenaline factor? And does that mean that a win is, incredibly satisfying compared to in public match? Hell yeah, it does. And again, that's why I know some people go into it. They can deal with the loss, or maybe they can't deal with the loss, and they're beating the crap out of their keyboard over the side of their door frame, but they like the high that they get from a win. So I get that, but I think I'm past that point in my life where I just don't want to deal with that frustration just for the sake of getting that win. I think the big thing is going to be, though, in the long term, is whether or not the community that starts to exist inside of the competitive play, ends up being people who take the game more seriously, who are willing to communicate more, who are willing to take the time to learn the heroes and be more proficient with them. I think that's the other side of it. A lot of people hope that the competitive play environment features players of higher skill. I mean, there's really no way to sugarcoat it, as a lot of people are hopeful that when they boot into competitive or ranked play, that they end up with a group of players who have, you know, a higher skill level, who are again more adept with the different heroes, and then that creates a better environment. You know, that creates that competitive environment where the games feel more driven, the matches are closer, the matches are tighter, and everything's just more satisfying. Now, if that happens to work out that way, that'd be outstanding. But my experience in the past with these matchmaking-based competitive modes is that that's not the case. Pretty much everyone under the sun is going to hop into competitive play, especially when there are cosmetic rewards on the line to drive people to competitive play, and you're going to end up with the same mixed bag of players that you saw in public play, with the really only saving grace being the fact that you have a skill level that is matchmaking with people of a similar skill level, at least after you finish those 10 placement matches. So there it is, guys. That's my 10 cents. Honestly, I could probably go on for another 20 minutes, but I won't. I have to say, at an earlier point in my life, I might be all over Overwatch's competitive play like I was with many of the rank modes that existed inside of Halo and Counter-Strike and all the different first-person shooters I played over the years. But that time has definitely passed for me. I don't really get the same sort of satisfaction that I used to get from those types of experiences, especially when you consider the amount of frustration and stress that you have to cope with in order to get that satisfaction. But I do know there are some of you out there who still share that level of masochism for competitive matchmaking-based competitive play, and I really want to hear from you guys as well as those of you who have no interest in it. So, you know, really, I want to hear the different stories. Why are you interested in competitive play? Why aren't you interested in competitive play? If you want to share some past experiences of competitive play, ranked matchmaking inside of other games, whether it be Halo or Call of Duty or Counter-Strike, I don't care. I would love to hear your stories. You know, it could be a story that pushed you away from competitive play. It could be a story that brought you back to competitive play. Let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. An additional shout out to all of you who supported me on Patreon, the fine members of my tank crew, Jack, Cleo, and John. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.